Yo, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on, King?
Hey, there we go. Hey, everything's working, man. I like it. All the audio's working. It's unusual, right? Usually
Hey, for
there's
once,
some
it's
kind
weird, you know. Hey, it's good. It's good.
Oh man. What is going on, everybody, man? We have a special guest here on tonight, man. We have the legendary CrpyotKrag in the house, man.
Well, specials not something I would use, but it's yes, nonetheless. But hey, I was DJ's cameraman at Mining Disrupt last year, so
Yeah. See? Look, he's moving up, dude. Pretty soon he's gonna start his own
I
YouTube
know.
channel.
There we. I told you, man. I need to find some more hours in the day. I just, it's hard. It's hard.
Well, just like I said, you just have to stop watching so much, and then you can start making more. See, it's a trade
That's
off.
true. That's true.
Trade off, man. So well, how was your day, Craig? How was everything today? Good.
Hey man, today was great. It's just another day in the office. I think most people know me. I still I work in the industry. I'm an enterprise architect by trade. I design software for state and federal government. So on the consulting side, it was a pretty busy day. So that's another thing that I always try to manage too is I try to have fun with crypto, but I'm still in software very heavily. So as a
Nice. Yeah, I was just trying to get the kids all registered in school and like all this other stuff, like birth certificates and like
oh wow.
Immunizations and all that. I'm like calling people all day. It's awful. I'm about half done.
Yeah, my kids are older now, so like, I don't have to worry about the school. My son, he's going to college, and my daughter just finished up school, so that's why I have a lot less hair. So, when the kids get that old, you lose a lot of your hair, But yeah, no, I had a great day today. It's always interesting, trying to do consulting work, and then you're trying to filter in some crypto stuff while you can, try to pick up the news in the morning, try to stay connected with what it is. Sometimes it's tough, and even trying to do like a YouTube video or like a YouTube channel, like you were talking about, a lot of the stuff that I do, I probably could do a channel on that, do some pretty cool stuff, but stuff that may even be helpful to the community every now and then, especially around ASIC repairs, stuff like that. It's kind of a hobby of mine, and it'd be something to be kind of cool. And I even collect art. You can see like my PP Langella up here.
There you go.
You can't already see it, but I even collect some some meme art. You got to have some memes.
So I mean, Craig, man, you've been like just. I ask you questions all the time, man. You've been the guy who's like show me everything about ASICs whenever I have a question. This guy, he just knows. To me, it feels like everything and anything about Bitcoin mining. What machines are doing what. If this happens, this could be this thing. Because I know you got the experience, right? As a Bitcoin miner, right? Because you've been doing it a lot longer than I have, right? Predominantly. Mining Bitcoin natively. Where do you see this industry going? Do you see it going more to, as far as people who self-mine, do you think it's going to be more hydro immersion setups for density, or do you think there's still going to be some air-cooled units out there?
Man, that's a deep question. That's a deep question. Yeah, early Bitcoin mining, it's really been, it took the progression through, CPU to, the early days, CPU mining, GPU mining, these early ASICs, the Can-Am, I bid on that one. I didn't win it. I wanted the first one, the A1. I was bidding on it, but it went for too much. It was like 29 grand or something. It was, really out there, but they only made like 300 of each of those units. But you look at the progression of Bitcoin mining over, it's hard to even believe, over a decade, and where it's came and where it's going. That's a really tricky question, and you always kind of look at where you're at in the bull market versus what are your equipment costs. What type of efficiencies are they bringing to the table, and balancing that with the cost. And Red Panda did a really good video the other day where he was comparing his 96 terahash unit. During the last bull run. That unit came out, I think, in July of 2021, and very good unit. I have some of those units, and they're tanks. They're really good series. But I mean, I've had excuse me, the S7, S9, the 17 series was totally junk, and then the first 19 series S19 pros, and then into the J pros, and then of course, as you're aware, some of the newer ones like the K pros and the pro pluses. Don't really like the pro pluses, and then of course now we're really getting into the XPs and the S21s, and Bitmain's ahead of the game. When you look at really ASICs, Bitmain has really opened it up for everyone. Um, and I guess from a home mining perspective, to answer your question, that's really complicated, because you really have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I mining? Is it for money? Is it to support the network? Is it to support decentralization? Am I running a node with it as well? Am I, doing things to support a project, not just trying to get a revenue stream? And I think, a lot of times it's easy to get caught up in that as well. As we're all to some degree here, you have to pay bills, right? You have to have some fiat as well.
Right.
And, I have expensive electric bills, and, that, now as well with electric bills, it's not cheap. You have to be able to, cut your losses and be a little strategic when you sell as well in order to recoup those costs. But, in the early days with Bitcoin mining, you could pick up, even just a few years ago. I'll give you just kind of a good example that I brought up, like a 104 terahash unit. That unit is in my opinion a tank. It's a really good unit. I've had some issues with the hash boards, but overall it's a really good machine. When that machine came out, that was right after China banned, they were taking those steamrollers. You remember where they were taking those rollers over the machines over there, and a lot of that hash rate moved over. But at the time, if you were one of the public miners, you got that in July of 2021, maybe August of 2021. And at that time, the network was about 68 exahash, which is at the time seemed like tremendous amount. If you've been mining for a while, 68 exahash is a heck of a lot of machines. And if you look at that one machine, the hash rate of that machine was about one. That one machine was 1 out of 570. Let's see, I got here 1 out of 500, 635,000. So you're at the network, your machine was like one of 653,000 essentially worth of hash rate. Which was how I tend to look at things, is like, when I'm buying a miner, how much of the network am I getting for what I'm buying, right?
Right.
Like with your S20, your S19Ks, your 20 machines, you're at 2 petahash, a little over 2 petahash. So I'm doing those same type of calculations even then. But now the network is that 104 terahash unit is 8 times that. It's like 1 out of 5.7 million units. So that same machine, just in 2 years, or 2.5, 3 years, you're really, it's 8 times difference. And not only that, now you've had the halving, so you're half revenue, and you're only getting an eighth of what you would have before. So
right,
an eighth of the half. So when you start looking at that, you really have to be ahead of the curve when it comes to hash rate in order to really have that longevity, with one exception, and that is if you have like RetroMike God tier rates, which is like 5 cents. If you have 5 cents, you can pretty much do whatever you want. Now you can't scale at that level unless you're have PPAs and things like that, right? But for the home miner, there's things out as well that's not so power intensive, like the Nano 3 from Canon, and some of those bit axes, just hit a block, not long ago. Things like that.
Yeah. Do you think though, with those bit axes, that I see some in everybody has different strategies, right? You know what I mean? But it's like I see some of these guys buying 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it's just like they think that they're increasing their odds, which I mean they are, but is that cost worth incurring all that electric and buying all those machines? You know what I mean? Or is it just better just to have one? Like I got one bit axe upstairs. You know what I mean? That's all I got. and I don't plan on buying a Nano 3 or anything else. Like I think everybody should just have one machine. Like I know some people that just have like piles of USB sticks, you know what I mean? They got
Right.
all these mini
Right.
things going on, and I'm just like, I feel like it's just a giant waste of money. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, and I like that you said you had that one unit, because at the end of the day, you're help decentralizing the network, right? Even with that one unit, will you ever hit a block with it? You're probably more likely to win the lottery at this point, right? Than to actually win a block with that thing. But at the end of the day, at a small cost to you, you are providing a very valuable service to Bitcoin, and and you're decentralizing the network, and you're able to provide that lower end hardware, but again, you are decentralizing the network and helping contribute in that way. But yeah, does it make sense to scale up that many? Yeah, probably not. If you're being realistic. Now, if you want just that many to kind of help support the network, then that's a goal maybe. But um me personally, I wouldn't buy more than a few of them.
So kind of going back to the home miners, right? You know what I mean? Like I have a pretty small farm in comparison to you, and you've even said that yours is small in comparison to others, right? Um, do you think that people, even not just my size but your size, do you think that it's going to be hard if you're not one of those companies that just has just endless containers of Bitcoin miners? Does it make more sense to just, I don't know, buy like a KS5L or like an L7, L9 and just mine it to NiceHash, convert to Bitcoin? Or is it still worth it to the home miner to mine at home? I mean, because most home miners can, I think they can achieve, I'm going to say lowest they could probably achieve is like 8 to 10 cents, right?
Mhm.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? If they get really good rates, most people are over that, obviously. Um, do you think it's worth buying a single unit? Like, let's say, like if somebody's saying, "Hey, Craig, I want to get into mining," is it worth it to buy an S21 Pro, or would you direct them to like an altcoin miner? Like, if they were only going to buy one and that's all they're buying and that's all they're willing to invest, would you direct them to the Bitcoin miner, or would you have them go to an altcoin miner?
Yeah, and it really comes down to the goals of kind of that individual too, and kind of what they're wanting to do, right? If you want to mine Caspa and make $50 a day and convert it to Bitcoin, that's a quick way that you can take capital and convert into Bitcoin, which I mean helps support the network, as far not the network necessarily, right? But the ecosystem, because you're purchasing Bitcoin. The bad thing is that you're hurting Caspa in the run, right? You're not holding that, you're putting sell pressure on Caspa to go into Bitcoin. So there's always that relationship that you got to kind of respect there if that's what you're going to do. But I always encourage people, if they want to get into Bitcoin mining like that. Me personally, I wouldn't do it at home. I probably have to get a divorce, to be honest. I mean, they're loud. They're annoying. They can produce a lot of heat, even on low power mode. They're still, little, big space heaters spitting out, 2,100 watts worth of BTUs, in your house that you got to deal with. If you're, and I've been through the whole gambit. You run them in your house, and then, all of a sudden your AC units are sweating. And you're trying to figure out what the heck, what am I going to do with all this? But yeah, I mean, it comes down to the goals of that individual. And, if you want an ASIC like that, my recommendation, would be to go ahead and purchase it, but look at getting it hosted like at Terra or, one of the other, hosters, so that you can get a competitive rate, but you also take that, the environmental issues that you have running it in your house and putting it somewhere else. I mean, just getting the electrical to it, getting, the heat, dealing with the heat, dealing with, a lot of the things that come with at home ASIC mining is just very, very difficult. So
So you would essentially still recommend home miners in this current market right now to buy Bitcoin ASICs?
it's not financial advice. It's not financial advice, but I mean, I'm even excuse me, I'm even looking at a refresh in my farm, and I'm kind of at a decision on what I want to do, if I want to go the hydro route, or some of the other go with the higher end, like the pro unit that's 234 terahash, or wait kind of longer down the road. um, the main reason I haven't refreshed yet is to make those decisions. But even at an at-home miner, you're facing. It's not like the last bull run. The last bull run, you still had the rights, you had the core scientifics, you had all those big players there that were Bitcoin mining. But like Riot, for example, they're bringing on their Corsicana site that's 1 gigawatt.
Yeah.
I mean, it's massive. It's a massive amount of hash rate. So to go up against that, you're going to continually look at it, and after every halving, you always look at what's the recovery time for hash rate onto that network. So most of the time it's within 15 to 30 days. Sometimes it's a couple of months, but traditionally it's been pretty quick that hash rate recovers after the halving. And that's because it really kind of sets us into a bull run. That may not be the case this time. So if you feel like it's worth taking a little bit of a risk to get some coin, and if it's profitable and you have to pay that electric out of pocket, obviously the more bang for your buck. And and I've even done this as well. I use the Bitcoin mine to pay for my GPU mining, the power. So I've used
Right.
I've offset my GPU mining with my BTC miners, but I have other miners there too. And it's certainly okay. I think if that's part of your strategy, just to a certain degree to do that. But it's kind of up to your goals.
So I know I want to share this chart that Craig shared with me. I didn't even know Brains had this chart. It's actually really cool. I played with it for 2 seconds before the stream started. So
see, I dropped that bomb on you.
Yeah, I haven't really played with it, but I'll let him explain it, and he can kind of go over it in detail. So let's see, make sure you guys can see this. Okay, so this is over here at Brains, and it's a Brains Insights, and it's future projections. It looks like for 36 months to halving. Is this current? Oh, this is already after this is after the Bitcoin halving. So I put in a 110. Let me do my farm real quick here.
Sure.
Do 2 petahash, and I think it's 46,000 watts ish. I think.
Yeah, and you can even do it per unit too. I think yours was
98 and 2100 or something.
No, it was even lower than that. I think it was 74 terahash for 1525.
Oh yeah, when we really down tuned it, right? When it was really, really low.
Yeah.
So obviously you have the electric prices down here at the bottom.
Yeah, and just kind of why you're fooling with that there, just to kind of give everyone a little bit of a background here. Really, what you're looking at here is and this goes for really any network that you're looking at. It's really the cost to mint. In this case, this is a chart from Brains Insights team. It's about what's the cost to mint 1 Bitcoin based on the variables of your farm. So it's a really neat way you can kind of tune in and put your hash rate, put your power rate. And then I think on there too, yeah, you adjust your block reward. I think by default it was still on the previous block reward, but you can do even some advanced under the advanced options as well. You can also put in a percentage of increase in the network that you kind of project over the next year to really help you kind of narrow down what does Bitcoin have to be and what's your cost to mint based on. We really look at 2 factors: your electricity rate, any type of fees, and then also your OPEX, or any type of operating expenses that you may have. In my case, my operating expenses is pretty low, but when you look at somebody like Riot, for example, they're paying a lot of employees, to do their immersion, or whatever the case is. They have to pay those. They have to pay for their building. They have to pay their taxes and all that kind of stuff. And you can really narrow that in with your OPEX as well, so you can get a good gauge of where you're at profitability wise at the farm level.
Yeah, this is great here.
Yeah, it's really insightful, and we always kind of measure that as what's the cost to mint. And it's
Right.
really interesting, kind of trend lines to look at that over time, and where that's been with the network hash rate. And there's a lot of variables there, right? It's
Oh
pretty neat
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, it's a nice chart. So, one thing, as far as being new to this and being good, this is my first like bear cycle here, is like my fear is that the right now the S19Ks are not very profitable, right? I don't even think they're profitable right now. If they are, it's marginally, right? My
Mhm.
fear is once they go unprofitable and they keep bringing more and more hydro onto the scene, right? My fear is that it's going to be that they're not going to come back. You know what I mean? Like, if
Yeah.
what if we keep getting difficulty adjustment increases, right? Do you think the S19Ks and all that stuff will be profitable again around 9 cents? Do you think it will happen in the bull run, or do you think that they're going to get priced out?
That's a deep question. That's a deep. Yeah. Wish I had one of them magic balls, we can just rub and try to figure it out, the magic 8 ball or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it really depends. It really depends on the network. I mean, you have Mara who's growing. You have Riot that's growing. You have all that competing hash rate. And they're turning over new machines as well. They're bringing the S21s. They're bringing the Pros in. They're bringing the new ones in. They're bringing Hydros in. As we seen at Mining Disrupt, and unfortunately, I didn't get to make it to BTC. The conference this year.
Yeah,
Really wanted to see everybody there, but kind of the theme I felt this year from the big boys is really hydro, and hydro. They're able to pack more chips in, get better efficiency, um, and you don't have to deal with the heat. You don't have you have to deal with the heat in a different way, and you don't have to deal with the noise situation, except for the cooling towers and some of those bigger units, those you know 4 megawatt units. They have those racks where you just pop them in and you're able to put
yeah,
connect your hydro ups. Really sweet setup. That's kind of what I'm leaning towards, actually, is a setup like that. um
yeah. Those things looked amazing. I'm not gonna lie;
yeah.
they were really great. And that's kind of where I think the big self miners are going to be going to is going to be going to going to the hydro stuff.
Yeah, and really to answer your question, that's a really hard question, to answer. And I guess my initial gut reaction to is I hope that the home miner still can compete, right? Because it's
Right.
important to the Bitcoin network that everyone be able to participate, whether you're running a node or whether you're running, mining hardware, to generate you some Bitcoin. It's important that those miners are there. And one of the other things that I was really surprised about is you look at a lot of other countries that are coming online that either from a national perspective in their own country, the government side, or some electrical companies, they're actually putting in their own farms, on the grid. For hydro,
Yeah.
for example, they're running at like 1 cent, 2 cent. They're buying up
That's
pallets of.
ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean they're buying pallets of S19s, S19J Pros. They want those machines cheap because they can run them at $2 or $3 right now, profitable. You look
Yeah.
at 2 cent power, that's amazing. Some of these countries are able to do that, but Paraguay is a good example. They're kind of like coming down on the miners, there. So there's always that give and take, and that's a good example
Yeah.
too. And I know Vinny, I was just looking at your chat here, Marshall Long. He that was a really good interview that Marshall did. He's awesome. Met him at Mining Disrupt last year. Met him one time before that, but yeah, he's a real OG. He's from the way early days. Great guy.
So he asks, giving pools, I believe, not what too much, but way too much control, and Bitmain having that control. And he's wondering your thoughts on that.
Well, that would require me to think too much tonight. So just just joking. Excellent question. I mean, if you look at Bitmain, for example, I mean, they're getting more competition. What's Miner? Canan's always been there. They're the first, actually, but Bitmain really is the one that really is is pushing these units out. They have good fab, connections. They're able to push these units out, but they also have amp pool. And if you look at foundry and amp pool together, you're looking at 50% of the network.
Yeah.
Between two pools. I'm currently on Foundry, been with them a long time. Really like Foundry, but that does concern me. That you have a centralization into the pools, and it's getting a little worse. You can kind of see that trend over time as more and more of these public miners come online. They kind of, some people hate Foundry, some people don't like amp pool, but they have a significant amount of the network, which is not good for the network, in my opinion. I would like to see it more decentralized. So I always, tell people that, if you're going to run a home miner, for example, help decentralize the network by putting it onto other competitive pools, either here in the U.S. or, wherever you may be.
And if you guys have any questions for Mr. Krag, please put them in the chat. We'll definitely get to them. That's one of the first ones I've seen. I don't think I've seen many other ones. Come on, guys, get some questions for the legend here, man. This guy's he is the best when it comes to Bitcoin mining.
No, not quite, not quite.
So
but,
one thing.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say one thing that I noticed a lot of people doing, at least in ASIC mining, and I didn't make that mistake because I see it a lot, is I see guys buy 10, 20, 30, 40 units, 50 units, but they don't buy any parts. They buy no spare parts.
Yeah.
They don't buy any control boards, no fans, no power supplies. Like they'll dump, tens of, thousands of dollars on these things, couple 100,000, but then they won't spend like 2,000 ordering enough surplus to fix, like a quarter of their fleet, on site. You know what I mean? Which is what, that's, I bought parts with mine, and stuff like that. So I think everybody, I just see it a lot in this space when people are getting into ASICs, that they're reluctant to buy the that equipment. Now in the bull run, Krag, with your experience, has it been tougher to find replacement parts like that? And is it more expensive? Like, let's say control boards, like, I don't know, like what, like $80? You know what I mean? Is that same control board in the bull run going to be like $250?
Oh yeah, easily. Those parts are super expensive, and that's one thing about Bitmain. You're going to have to fix machines, and that's one thing when you start getting into ASIC mining that you kind of learn up front is it's not a set it and forget it type of appliance. They require a lot. It's in fact I've got a hash board here. But you look at this hash board, using about 1,000 watts of power. Every one of these chips that's in here, it has paste. That paste dries out just like a GPU does. And once that paste dries out, it may not mess your chip up, but there's a lot of resistors, capacitors. There's a lot of signal pathways that travels all the way through the chips. And if any of those 5 signals are disrupted, then you've got a problem. So, but yeah, no, as far as parts like power supplies, control boards, hash boards, we could probably have an hour discussion just on repair of hash boards. But you want to be able, at least I've always approached this, because I wanted to start possibly a repair company to do the repairs, but it's such detailed work. And
it is.
And I've just got a lot going on. So I'm like, do I really want to do this? Probably not. I'd rather just pay somebody else to do it. But you have Dave Vetrominer. He's interested in doing that kind of type of thing, and he's experienced in doing it. It's like trying to take a resistor off that's the size of like a speck of pepper in some cases.
Yeah. There's the place I was looking at to get trained at ASIC Masters is more like for like chips. You know what I mean? And the bigger caps, but the small stuff I would still have to send to a very particular shop, right? When you get into the really small stuff that like you could barely even see, I know for a fact that I can't even do that stuff because my hands aren't, they're not that steady. But yeah, there's ASIC repair work is tough.
My monsters, man. I'd have to give my, I'd be too much caffeine, man.
Oh man, we do have a question here from from
Yeah.
Chris Hanley here. Yes, CrpyotKrag and Mining King. How far out do you make plans with miners? And he's like, example, do you prepare for the next cycle in the current, or is this impossible? And I'll let Craig go first on this.
Man, that's a deep question. He always asks good questions.
The 2 minute
Um,
overview. The 2 minute overview answer.
yeah, 2 minute overview. Yeah, I mean, you always want a replacement schedule, right? You want to try to replace hardware because at the end of the day, as soon as you unbox that thing and put it in the shelf, it's getting behind the 8 ball. As far as the only exception is when China banned and the hash rate came down. That was the only exception, and you could see by the chart it very quickly rebounded in a couple of months. But generally, yes, you want to try to build for the next cycle and try to have a replacement cycle in mind, so that you're not replacing your whole farm. But if you've got, let's say, 10 units, you may try to replace 2 a year or 3 a year to try to get out ahead of that. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into that from an economic perspective. If you're dropping $5,000 on a new machine, you want to get the longevity out of that. Right now, I mean, I haven't looked recently, King, but I guess the new S21 Pro, the payback on it is still probably like 500 days or something. It's
Yeah, it's
it's
it's long. It's pretty long. It's so for me when I'm looking at it, that is a complex question, right? Because it's like it depends what your financial goals are, right? Like if somebody came to me and they're like, "Hey, I got a bunch of like 96 terahash units and I'll sell them to you for $100 each," I would probably take it, right? And I would gamble, right? And I would take the pallet of them, right? In that hopes that when Bitcoin goes up, I can turn them back on, make my money back really quickly, right? Because I didn't pay that much for them. But I know in that cycle though, like this next cycle, that I would have to sell them, right? That they're not going to make it another cycle. And then when you get into ASIC mining, at least from my research and how I look at it, is like you want the newest and greatest, right? If you're buying 2 or 3 years old, you're not going to make it another cycle. You know what I mean? It's going to be tough to make it another cycle if you're not sub 6 cents in power. You know what I mean? So when it comes to ASIC mining, at least Bitcoin mining, it's really about power, right? When you get into older machines, it really comes down to the efficiency and then also obviously your electric price. So
Yeah, and you look at like Retro Mike, for example, he's still running S9s. I mean,
it's freaking nuts.
that's some. I mean, them thing are tanks. S9s are tanks. I feel like you could take them outside and run over them and plug them back up, and they
So,
would still run. I mean, they are just such great machines. But but he has 5 cent power. He can
right.
do that. He can do that.
Yeah.
But one other key thing to that too, Chris, is when you look at these type of machines, you can support other networks with these machines as well. Like I do have some machines that I mine Digibyte with. It's an older
Nope.
project, so I mine that and MBCH and Peercoin and some of the other projects that you can mine. And there's a lot of merge mineable coins on some pools that you can look at as well. Where you merge mine several coins at once. So again, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's your electric rate, and do you think it's going to go back up so you can recoup some of those costs at some point? It's a lot that goes
Yeah.
into it. Yeah.
Yeah. Second TL has a question for Craig here. What parts do you recommend is a must when getting into ASIC mining, or is it just all of them? What do you think? If somebody was going to buy, let's say I was going to buy an L7 today, let's say I was just going to buy one, would you recommend that they buy any parts for their ASIC at all, or would you let them kind of just
Yeah, I tell you,
just let it go?
yeah. I mean, that's a really good question. It kind of depends on the machine, and it's hard to know that when you're buying them until you've run them a little bit, But the L7's an awesome machine. That thing is a tank as well. I've had very, very few problems with L7s, and it's from control boards to power supplies to the hash boards themselves. I mean, they're kind of like a tank. I mean, they're like the L3. They're tanks, and I would at minimum have one fan on hand. That way, if a fan does go down and you're running the stock firmware, at least you have that on hand to get that machine back up and going. If it's a control board, that would be just kind of depending on your own what you feel about it. I would have at least a fan, if not a control board. Power supply, may not worry about it, but the L7s, for example, they use a lot more power, so they're more apt to go down. But I've had very few problems with the L7s. Very good
Yeah, the
machines.
L7's been pretty solid in our farm. The only ones that I tend to have problems with are the 8800s.
Mm,
I have a client who has almost 100 of those, and I had like 8 take a crap
mm,
on the power supply. So, but I
mhm.
mean, that's just because of sheer volume right there, right? That's kind of
Yeah.
different. So, but to me, it's like if you're buying 5 ASICs, you should at least have,
Mhm.
at least from what I'm saying, at least one item of everything: one power supply, one control board, and one set of fans. Right. This way, if your unit goes down, what you want to wait 2 weeks or however long it's going to take to order your part to get it in. You know what I mean? That's how I look at it. It's like, as well as obviously in the bull run, it's going to cost me even more money. So yeah, I
Mm.
get that it's extra money I have to pay right now, but it's going to be triple or double that money. You know what I mean? A year from now. So it's like I'd rather just kind of pay it out of pocket now and just kind of eat it. You know what I mean? And save some money in the long run.
Yeah, it's kind of like an insurance plan, right? You have that in
Yeah.
place in case if you need to replace those units, or the parts in those units, you can go and replace those. But yeah, you don't want to be in a bull run when you're making really good money on an L7, for example, and then you got a power supply go down, or a control board. It's something that
Yeah.
that you want to get out ahead of. Yep.
Sadie sometimes is asking Mr. Craig, is immersion or liquid cooling relevant to your setup right now currently?
I wish it was. Yeah, and actually, that's a really good question. That's something I'm looking at. Is I don't want to go the immersion route, just because of the dielectric fluid.
It's
Dealing with the
expensive.
mess. It's a very, very expensive. And
Unless you get the 2-stage, which is even
yeah,
more expensive.
yeah. Now the two stage is awesome though, because you deal with the machines actually in kind of like, it's almost like isopropyl. So
Yeah.
it's kind of has that evaporation to it, that you don't have to deal with the oil. But it's like the oil, you got to like filter it. You've got to, if you a lot of people will have those open air like tops to them, and it gets contaminants in there, and you got to deal with that. And so I don't really want to create more work for myself, although the machines do work a lot better in those immersion tanks. I think if it is relevant to me going forward, I think I will opt to do kind of the data center approach, where they're in racks with the hydro. And when we were down at the Mining Disrupt, we seen Alpha Packs. They had that LTC Doge miner that was
Yeah,
in a rack. That was a beast.
but see, yeah, it's a beast, but that's what worries me about script mining is when they mass produce those units, the hash rate is exponentially going to go up, the difficulty is going to go up. I mean, there, there's alpha packs, there's Bitmain, and then there's possibly Locotech in the mix. To me, there's too much going on in there that
Mhm.
I fear in like the next 2 years, it's gonna there's gonna be too much in that circle, and I that's why I sold my L7. I got rid of it because I was afraid of there being too much competition from other people. But Second TL has another question, and dude,
He,
Second TL, he always has good
he only
questions.
gets one question. No, I'm just joking.
It's a good one. It's a good
Just
one. He
joking.
says, Craig, how frequently do you do preventive maintenance on your ASICs, like blowing out, repasting every 6 months, once a year? Um, how often do you do preventive maintenance on the units?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because being in an open air environment, that's really why most farms are moving to hydro. Actually, is you're dealing with the elements. Not only it's much more efficient to have the cooling loop on the chips, but you're also bringing in environmental issues when you start doing open air mining. So, for example, in the Wadham containers that I have, essentially it's just one open wall with a filter on it, and as it's bringing in air, I have filters on it, so it does catch quite a bit of it. But like a Merv 8 filter, it only catches like 80% if you're lucky. So there are some particulates that get through, particularly during the pollen season. So I have to be really careful about that, because if I don't blow them out, that pollen. Well, let me just tell you how much pollen it is. Like on my filters, there's honey running at the bottom of them. Because where
I remember you
there's
telling me that. That's crazy.
so much air coming in, that's humid air coming in, over
Right.
time,
It's
like if it
making
rains over time, by the end of the season, it's like honey dripping on the bottom of the container. I didn't know I was a bee
no, but
making
look, hey,
honey.
you need to jar that. That's Bitcoin. That's Bitcoin honey. Come on. You can sell that stuff.
I like the way you think. That's a good idea.
I'm not a
That's a
marketing
great
guy,
idea.
though. I'm not a marketing guy.
That's true. That's a good idea. I did want to put some beef jerky on the back of the container though, and maybe we could do some like honey barbecue
Oh,
jerky or something.
like a dehydrator. Oh,
Yeah.
dude, that would be so sick.
Yeah, it'd be cool. It'd be cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's but no, like I mean the key to that is you do want to try to keep them blown out. I don't pull them and repaste them unless I'm already working on the machine and I start seeing some thermal issues on that machine. Then I'll start kind of breaking it down and trying to figure out what's going on. And 9 times out of 10, those units just need repasted. They're not very consistent from the factory, so a lot of times you'll see some heat spots and things like that you got to deal with. But yeah, I mean it's yep.
We got one question from Mr. Allset here. He says, "Are you running any servers or nodes? Are you strictly a Bitcoin miner? You got anything else over there?"
Oh no, I do a lot of different things. GPU mining, I do run nodes for projects. I think it's important that you kind of diversify as well, and I always try to support networks. I don't run as many nodes as I used to, and most of the time I run them on virtual machines as opposed to just running the hardware myself. I do have a location just for GPU mining that I do have some items there, but I don't have any AI machines. I bought some GPUs to run AI machines 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and I've been kind of crypto mining with them ever since. But instead of doing the AI, but that's a really good question. I mean, I think that running a node for a network, number one, you support that network, but it also helps you. You're able to get in there and understand the tech. Whether it's learning Linux or learning if you want to run it in Windows or whatever the case is. It helps extend you and extend your technical abilities as well, and you're supporting the network in the meantime. So yes, I definitely run nodes. I am not involved with AI yet, so it's something that's in the works. I actually have some 4090s sitting here that I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with. So
Put them on salad, man. But what do I know? What if somebody wanted to start, getting into ASIC repair, is there a good site or somewhere like is a good starting point? The first place that I think people need to start with ASIC repair to really understand what's going on is learning how to read the logs.
you're right.
The logs can be very insightful, which is why I hate ice rivers because they don't have a log. I'm like looking down there at the bottom,
Yeah.
like if you only had this button down here that I could click on to read your log, we could solve so many problems right now. But as far as for Bitmain, because that's predominantly what we run, right? That's kind of what we host. To me, you have to learn how to read those logs. That is essential for ASIC repair.
Yeah, and the problem is too, it's different for each unit sometimes too. Each series has their own kind of way of putting things into the logs for certain issues. And I was kind of making fun the other day. I think I mentioned to you, I said from an AI perspective, screw the AI that Hive's doing. I just wish that Bitmain would put a list of their errors, and put a kind of what some general expectations, some general troubleshooting around that, and you control around there.
Like having instead of having the log, like maybe a code, right?
Yeah,
And then you could diagnose the kind of like a car, right?
Yeah.
Like you just get an error code, and then that you can troubleshoot around the error code, right? You know what I mean, and do different things like that. That would be kind of nice because the logs that I hate the most are probably the E9. I don't like those logs.
Yeah, they're rough.
Yeah, I don't like the E9s. The Bitcoin ones, I got those down pretty good. Casper ones are okay, and I've got down the L7s pretty good. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and like on the Bitcoin side too, a lot of times if something is getting hot, if it says it's getting hot, sometimes it just could be some dirt around the temperature sensor. You just need to clean it off.
yeah,
There's 4 sensors depending on the unit, so you have to
yeah.
keep those
So
clean. You know.
yeah, so like for me, like when I'm troubleshooting, like let's say an ASIC goes down there, and I go out there to the site. The first thing I'm doing, right, obviously, I'm deracking it. I'm putting it on the bench. I'm taking off the fans, you know what I mean, and then I'm blowing out
Mhm.
the unit, you know what I mean. I just want to clean it, right, and just in case there's like some dirt buildup or whatever that's clogging a sensor, right. I want to get all that crap off there, and then I'll put it all back together, and then we're gonna test it, read the logs, go through it all again. That's kind of like my troubleshooting thing is first get it down on the bench, blow it out, and then let's do it again. Because there has been times where sometimes the sensors are like that. And I noticed that with the S19Ks and S21s, they're starting to have cooldown timers in there.
Mhm.
When they reboot, there's cooldown timers. There's also timers for the boards to heat up. Like if they don't
Mhm.
hit a certain temperature on the hash boards, they'll just sit there, wait until it hits that temperature, and then it'll start doing the voltages. So there is little nuances, right, to each
Mhm.
generation. You know what I mean? That's a little bit different that you have to learn to pick up on.
Yeah, you can always troll around on their forums, which is the support forums for Bitmain. It's not the
Yeah.
best, not the best place to go sometimes, but
So
sometimes you can get a little insight into that.
So DJ Mines asks, the Foreman doesn't tell you the codes. So no, what Foreman does is it could do a fetch. And what that's going to do is fetch the current rolling log, right? Not the log history of like the whole history, but just what that one boot has been through, right? That one cycle. You know what I mean? It's going to go to the machine, pull the log, and then you can download it as a text file. So no, Foreman, it doesn't tell you like, hey, this fan, like there is errors, like if a fan's missing in Foreman, it will say, hey, fan issue or fan missing, right? Minor health issue, whatever. But as far as like getting into really detailed stuff like voltages and things like that, yeah, Foreman won't pick up on that. It'll just realize that the miner isn't behaving correctly. It'll say like miner failing is all it's going to say. It's just going to keep booting it over and over and over again.
But you brought up a really good point, though. I mean, I think a lot of times people don't really understand the effort that goes into hosting people's equipment. And that's one thing I've been really impressed with you as CTO of Terra, and the entire Terra team. But that rack, that wall, that you guys have all those ASICs. People don't understand how much effort and how much work that is to really make sure those machines are running efficiently and well. I mean, you have to get on that scissor lift. You have to go all the way up there. You have to de-rack it, pull it
Oh, the
down.
top ones are the worst because they're like right next to
Yeah,
the rafters. The ones on the sides that are next to the rafters.
yeah.
Oh, those are AIDS. I hate so far. I knock on this desk. Don't. None of them haven't failed for a while, but I'm sure next time now it's going to happen. But yeah,
Yeah.
the ones by the rafters, I have to unstack ones around it, so it's a huge pain. But
Yeah, and then
yeah,
you got to bring it down, and then you got to turn it on, let it run for 4 or 5 minutes to figure out what's going on, and then you got to try to start troubleshooting. Maybe it's a control board or a power supply or something else going on with it. I've even had the little data cables go bad. Which are
yeah,
it's rare, but it does happen.
yeah.
And you're
I've had yeah
then you're
the
trying to reboot the machine and you got to let it run for another 5-10 minutes. So before you know it, you're getting into a lot of time and effort there to make sure people's
right,
running.
exactly. And sometimes that's why people ask, why am I being charged for this labor when for a repair, right? So you just have to think about it. I have to get up on the scissor lift, I have to take it off, I have to put it down on the thing, I take the fans off, I blow it out, put it back together, turn it on, verify that the air is what it is, right? And then I'll start troubleshooting. And the thing is you have to wait 5 to 10 minutes for the ASIC to really get all the way booted up every time. So every time I make a change, I have to go back and wait more time. Now, I don't just sit there with my thumbs. I go get another ASIC, right? And I work on that, right? But it's like a constant circle of waiting for things to boot up, right? To see if things are fixed. So it does take large amounts of time. There'll be right now though, like for me, the ASIC farm is going well. Like we're probably like at like 1.5% or 1% down.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So I've been keeping it pretty well most of the time. So
I think DJ has a good he has a good tip. You just need to hire some young bucks. That's a good tip.
No, it's not. No, I would rather like hire like actual people that are like have been in the scene, that understand the ASICs, because like you have to understand like that training people is time, right? Which also costs the company money. And you invest all that time into an employee and they may or may not hang around, right? You know what I mean? And then you're just training the next guy and then the next guy. And it's just an endless cycle of training. It's, yeah, I mean, I already know I'm going to have to go through it here in Missouri, but it's like, I would rather look at people who have experience, at least some, right, in mining versus zero. What's this? King, pick up your kids' toys. What's this? Pick up your kids' toys. I don't pick up my kids' toys.
I tell you what, you start moving these ASICs around, like you said, on them top shelves, it gets heavy. I mean, even in the container, I have a high container, so even on ladder, I'm like lifting it over my head, trying to jam it in. It's pretty tight, so it can get pretty tiring pretty quick.
Yeah, exactly. But see, I spent another day in that hot aisle in Kansas. I wanted to... I'm not going to say the last part, but you all can.
I think we get the idea.
It's
that's hilarious.
Yeah, it's definitely it's hard work maintaining the farm. You know what I mean? You got the hot aisle and the heat and long days, dirt and dust all over you. You know what I mean? It's definitely not easy, clean work like most people think it is. It'll definitely be a hard day's work before you know it. It's easy to manage 1 or 2 ASICs at home, but maybe try managing like 1,500, right? You know what I mean?
It's a lot. Yeah.
It's a different game. What do you think about Hive and their new enterprise solution, Craig? Are you looking at that at all from a management perspective?
Yeah, I think it's pretty exciting. I talked to them there at Mining Disrupt as well. I think it's pretty neat. I'm on the ASIC side. I've never really liked Hive, just because their firmware is super picky. If anything at all, and it's not a bad thing. It's just kind of an annoyance for me because it'll shut the machine down if it detects anything at all that it thinks is a problem. And in some cases, I'm in some cases, if it's okay for my environment, I'd rather just push through it. If I know the machine is fine, and you can tell it to ignore things, but to try to do that at scale sometimes is difficult. But on the flip side, I did try this in early versions, so I'm sure they've improved over the last year or so. So I'm certainly willing to give them another chance. And it seems like with their enterprise, there's some really cool stuff coming out with it. So it's good.
Yeah, exactly. I am super excited about it.
But I like Hive, still for GPUs. I still, even though it's quite a bit more expensive, to operate now, just to have Hive, it's still my favorite.
Yeah, I've done a few other management softwares for GPUs, but to me, I would say that Hive is the best in my opinion when it comes to the GPU mining stuff.
So let me ask you a question. What do you think about these public Bitcoin miners going to HPC, high performance compute, slash AI? You look at a lot of these guys, Riot, Mara, for example, they don't really have a tier 3 data center, right? They have tier 1 at best. They have power, they have internet, fiber, maybe redundant fiber if they're lucky. They have fairly sophisticated networks, at least to deal with that amount of traffic. And we hadn't really talked about this, but one way to avoid that is to run proxies on your site, so that the proxy is the only thing that's communicating with the pool, and all your machines talk to the proxy. That way you limit that traffic to your local networks instead of throwing that over your WAN. So that's a way that you can kind of help with your networking, and your pool communication. So if you're getting a lot of stealth shares, things like that, that's a technique you can use to really do that if you have enough machines. But they don't really have tier 3 data centers. Some of them have purchased some. They were talking about it, Mining Disrupt, which is neat. But what do you think about HPC? I mean, you look at like Terra, for example. That's one of the things I've been really impressed with you guys is, not only do you have the hosting, but you've brought on the ASIC sales. You've brought in, Terra Compute with not hosting, but you're actually providing your own compute, which is another revenue stream for the business. So to me, that's very impressive. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I mean, um, so that's one thing that we wanted for the company, is not to be limited in one revenue stream, right? I think the key to success is to have multiple, revenue streams. Honestly, I mean, in the end, you know what I mean? Like later down the road, a few years down the road, I mean, we'll still be hosting ASICs and GPUs and stuff. But if you ask me what side of the business is gonna like be more predominant, like right now we do have AI, but it's not huge for us yet, right? I see the AI being way more huge for us in the future. You know what I mean? That to me is where the tech is going. It's where the whole, all industry. If you ask anybody, the first thing they're going to ask you is like, if you're a tech company, do you do AI? Right? That's what they want to know. They want to know that. And Go can attest to this too, that not everybody is implementing yet, right? It's very early adoption right now, right? It's very early. But I think that's where everything's going to go to, though, right? And like all these companies, AMD, Intel, NVIDIA, all these big tech companies, you go to any CES or any big conferences, right? That's the word. It's all about how much AI compute, how much have they improved their chips for AI. That is all that everybody talks about, right? They don't care about anything else anymore. And they say that it's going to 10x, over the next few years. I think that number is incorrect. I think it's going to be even greater. I think it's going to be 20. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I got to give a shout out to DJ. I mean, he said AI was the thing 2 years ago. Remember, he was buying everything AI.
Yeah.
So, he was ahead of the curve there. And like I said, I bought, GPU, some A5000s, 24 A5000s. Gosh, I guess it was about 3 years ago now. It's hard to believe it's been that long. In anticipation for AI workloads, for my GPU location. So that was, one of the things I was kind of looking at as well. But, a lot of these large miners, you're seeing their BTC margins squeezed as well. Just because they have 25,000 machines, that doesn't mean, they're not feeling the same squeeze as somebody that has 20 machines. So they're using it, not only the Caspa miners, like you said, mine Caspa and exchange the Bitcoin or hold it in their treasury, or convert that to something else, or whatever the case is. But that HPE or HPC rather, that's another revenue stream for them as well. It's I found that to be kind of interesting. I didn't know that it was that prevalent, with those Bitcoin, public companies. It's interesting.
Honestly, like people ask, like, why don't we host their AI? I had a guy come up to me. He came up to me last Mining Disrupt and this Mining Disrupt. I met him both times, and he's like, when are you going to be able to host AI equipment? I'm like, it doesn't make sense for us to do that, right? Because for us to make any money for like people don't understand like what goes into like data centers. Like there's dedicated fiber, right? For like 100 gig tunnel. That's like $5,000, and that's only using 10 gigs of it, right? It's so many costs that go into that, and if I have to give you a quote on a price, it's going to be something similar to AWS. You know what I mean? Like we did a small test run, which only one person was interested. We hosted like 2 pairs of 4090s for this client, right, for a year, and we charged him 25 cents all in. That included the internet, the IPs, the real estate, everything. We didn't make any money, and they did okay. But for us to make money, it's going to put you in an unprofitable state being a small person. Like, you would have to run like 8 to 12 card rigs or even higher at our rate to even make money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just the cost of the real estate, the power, the networking, the bandwidth and all that stuff. For us, we can make, we do way better hosting our own equipment than trying to offer co-location to people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you have a whole other set of challenges to deal with too. From a networking perspective, if someone's expecting, let's say 2 gigabit, and now you've brought on other clients, and at that same time they're all, hitting the network, you really got to configure your network to really have that available and to have that quality of service available on the network, for those clients. So, whole other series of issues that you have to deal with at that point. Definitely understand that.
I definitely don't want to deal with it.
You're busy enough as it is. You're a super busy dude. I mean, like I said, I've been very impressed with you guys, and like I said, that's what I want to say about our community. I love working with our community, and that's why I help you and I help other people that reach out. And I know there's others in the community that do the same. And whether it be Panda putting out very informative videos, or everybody else here that puts out content, and a lot of times it's hard to watch everybody, right? But there's at times things that pop up. It's like, wow, this is really cool. Really cool stuff.
Yeah.
And Goats has some good stuff, and Retro Mike always has good stuff as well, and very informative stuff. And it's sometimes niche, in different areas. But there's shoot that phone mining video that he has like 60 some thousand views or something crazy.
It's crazy. But yeah,
he's the phone master, man.
The phone mining is crazy. But as far as our community goes, it's kind of a unique community, man. Most people are really supportive. There's a couple other people that aren't like that, right? But I would say for the most part, man, everybody's like working together as one. Everyone's kind of willing to help each other out, which is really nice. You know what I mean? Because most industries are not that way. You know what I mean?
When I know Second TL, he's asked some really good questions, but from Linux perspective, things like that. I mean, he's just super helpful, and always willing to help. So it's awesome.
All right, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this last. Hawk went live, so yeah, I'm gonna answer this one question, and then we're gonna go raid Hawk. Jersey Jedi asked, do you think the S19K Pros will be truly profitable again? Seems like by the time it gets close, another new model will be out. What do you think, Craig? Do you think the Ks will be profitable again?
I hope so. I have some of them.
Same.
I think they will in the bull run, but there's a lot of macroeconomic things that could potentially derail that as well. You look at cycles, and will we have a bull run? If it follows a cycle, yes, but there's a lot of macroeconomic things that could happen. For example, if we go into a recession, things like that could really prevent the retail customer from coming back in and really getting into a really good bull run. So
I think it'll become pretty profitable again in the bull run. But if I was you, I would liquidate them, right? And the price should appreciate, but I feel like I'm not sure about price appreciation on machines. I don't think it's going to be as great as in previous runs, right? Because we had like supply chain issues. I feel like manufacturing is just out of this world right now. So I think there will be price appreciation on the machines, but I don't think it will be as great as it was in the last bull run, right? Where everybody was at home. It was hard to get things over here. You know what I mean? I don't think we're going to have that same issue.
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head with that. I don't think it's going to be as much. I mean, just due to the growth of the network, it's 8x more today than it was, in July of 2021, as far as hash rate plus the halving you got to take into account as well. So,
Right.
but I do think
The
you're
nice-
right. I think in the bull run they'll be profitable for a season.
Yeah, and the nice thing is too is if they're making like $10 a day or something like that, that let's say the machine like doubles or triples in price, that machine is more affordable to a newer miner. You know what I mean? That you'll be able to liquidate quickly than like an S21 Pro. You know what I mean? That you're selling for like 15 grand, right? That's a lot more money to somebody than like 3 or 4 grand, right? For a Bitcoin miner. That's more obtainable for the normal everyday person. But yeah, so I appreciate you, Craig. You gonna come back next Thursday?
Well, we'll see. We didn't even get into GPUs.
No, we didn't. No GPUs. I was kind of gearing it towards the Bitcoin mining, because you're the Bitcoin guy. I mean, look, you're even wearing the hat.
Well, yeah, I love Bitcoin. I love Bitcoin. But you know what? I love a lot of projects. Some I don't like, but there's a lot of projects I do like.
So we'll try to get Craig on again for next Thursday, and maybe next Thursday we'll go into GPU mining because I know Craig has heavily done a lot of GPU mining. So it'd be great to get some of his insight on this. I appreciate Craig coming on. We're gonna go raid Mr. Hot Crypto Mining. Thank you everybody for joining us tonight, and thank you, Mr. Craig, for coming on the stream, man.
It's always good chatting with you, my friend.
All right, you guys have a great night, and we'll talk to you later.
See you, everyone.